me big old buckets of butter beer. Give me big old barrels of butter beer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here of the sweet old butter beer.
Welcome to the Three Broomsticks. We invite you to pull up a chair at our slightly crowded table, grab a butterbeer, and settle in for a hearty discussion about Harry Potter. I'm Irvin Capeman.
I'm Sophia Jenkins.
I'm Aurelia Lieb.
I'm Sam Williams.
I'm Sierra Obermark.
I'm Ev McLaughlin.
And I am the editor of the podcast, Patrick Musilek.
Yes!
Woohoo!
Yay!
We're today for episode number 50.
50!
We've gathered to discuss the 117th chapter of the Harry Potter series, Christmas on the Closed Ward, Order of the Phoenix, chapter 23. We encourage you to read the chapter before listening, but, Aurelia?
We're not your mom.
Okay, hold on. I want to start things off real quick by saying that I was given false information. So I prepared for the chapter before that. So, man, St. Mungo's is such a great chapter. Wonderful stuff. Can't wait to discuss it with all of you sometime in the future.
On the bright side, we're still in St. Mungo's anyway.
Yeah, it'll be okay. I read this book like probably 12 years ago or so I'm pretty sure I can remember a couple things.
Oh, yeah. No, that's on me.
It's all right, Irvin.
That's my bad. I was like, the chapter at St. Mungo's, which in my mind was St. Mungo's. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. My bad.
Let us offer a toast to the comments on episode 47. This episode was our second of our Minister of Magic episodes, Rufus Scrimgeour, titled Sophia for Minister.
It's a good title.
We raise our glass to the first-time commenter, Books and Magic, who said, "Hi guys, long-time listener, first-time commenter. Beautiful start, love it. A few thoughts. You're lucky to have no idea that, quote, technical, quote, governments exist. We've had so many here in Italy. Hello, Italian person. Lovely. Thank you for commenting. Basically, if the parliament votes for a, quote, unquote, no faith motion, or there isn't a majority in the parliament anymore, the current government falls and a new prime minister is appointed. Usually, someone with an expertise that is needed in that moment. The latest case was in 2021, when the old president of the ECB was chosen to deal with the economic situation caused by the pandemic. I imagine something similar happened with Fudge. The Wizengamot voted to oust him and chose Scrimgeour as the new Minister for Magic, given the urgency of the situation and his expertise in fighting dark wizards. Parentheses, which wasn't that useful, honestly. On parentheses.
Wait, you became Snape suddenly.
Regarding how Scrimgeour dealt with Dumbledore's will, I really felt like he wanted to coordinate the war effort and help Harry. However, he had already ruined that relationship, and so found himself unable to gain Harry's trust. Generally, Scrimgeour seems to me like someone completely devoted to his duty, even to the point of mistreating people, parentheses, and throwing random wizards into Azkaban, unparentheses. End of comment, please discuss.
I feel like I'm so distracted by all the voices that happened in that comment, and I need to discuss that. No. That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. I think that probably was some sort of situation where they had to install somebody very quickly, and there was, clearly there's no confidence in Fudge at this point. But, I feel like it has to be something along those lines where they just had to pick somebody who was most applicable, I guess, in this scenario, which, to your point, Books of Magic, that very much describes Scrimgeour, even if he wasn't really able to use his expertise and knowledge. So I do think, that makes a lot of sense. This is a very good parallel to real life. So
Yeah.
well done.
I was going to say, since we recorded episode 47 and since we're now recording this, and also, I guess, spoiler to anyone who follows German politics to when we are recording this, the German government is now literally in the same scenario. They're now not the majority of the parties that are still in the ruling part of the government. They're now a minority. And so the rest of the parties were like, well, we don't have faith in this government, so re-elections now, please. So they're going to happen in February. And it's quite interesting because this is the first time I'm having a sort of closer seat to this, like as in I get to vote in this election, all of that stuff. And I'm not just looking in from the outside. So, for example, with the Italy example, I'm sort of aware of what's going on in Italy, but also not that closely because I don't vote in Italy.
What?
So, sort of like...
You don't vote in Italy?
Yeah. This is the thing in the EU. We don't vote in every country.
That would be wild.
Wait, Aurelio, what's the
wild.
voting age in Germany?
Well, that's an interesting one. I think for the German government, it's still 18. For the European election that happened this year, they lowered it to 16 for the first time.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
depending, it could be 16 for the election in February. But then also, the whole country has to organize an election really fast now. So I don't know if that's going to have an impact, if they're going to lower the voting age again to 16.
Amazing. I think it's the supplemental materials that Rowling has released since the publication of these books. One of them had a great deal of information about the Minister of Magic, including a list of ministers of magic or for magic that happened going all the way back to the initial formation of the current government that we have, which I think is in the 1700s. And she notes there that much like the British government system, you can, as the prime minister, you can call for elections, and they have to happen within 7 years. So you can wait the whole 7 years. You can do them, after 1 year if your party is feeling particularly strong. And this happens in England all the time, and the prime minister will pick, and then suddenly they'll actually lose, and it's a big surprise, or they'll do very well because they're soaring off a good economy or something of that nature.
Or they pick a date for a re-election, which happened this year, and everyone's like, "Why? Your party's gonna lose."
So that's amazing. So I think I don't know exactly when where Fudge was in his 7 years. It may be that his 7 years was running up during Half-Blood Prince, anyways. But he says the wizarding population has been screaming for my. What is it? He's been screaming for my resignation for a fortnight in Half-Blood Prince. And so I think he felt so much pressure, both in the government and outside the government, to call for an election. And so he wasn't voted out by the Wizengamot. I believe that he felt pressure to call for an election, called for an election, and then lost.
I feel like it's basically the same, though. Outcome-wise.
Outcome-wise, for sure.
They don't want him there anymore.
Yeah. I'm still not sure, and Irvin pointed this out, is there even a proper election process?
Yeah, for real.
Because it isn't really discussed in that writing that Rowling submitted.
No, it is not.
It's not really clear, if so, who gets to vote. It's not really clear who picks, who stands for, who lives, the candidates. None of that is clear at all. To which point, Irvin pointed out, is this even a democracy? Because if then, only 20 people get to vote on a system that no one else from the outside, got to put in anyway.
Yeah, is it a republic?
Right.
Is it a democracy? Can you stuff the ballot box? If you own 50 owls, if you're a postal worker and you just use all your owls to send it, does that work? Does the Weasleys have never voted because Errol can't make it? How does it work?
Yeah. And that's one of the things we talked about on the episode. Is it doesn't feel like people were involved in voting for Scrimgeour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then we were saying, obviously, we don't see it for any other, because all of the moments we see people being appointed as minister, seem to be either not following the usual process, because with Kingsley, it's also sort of like, well, he's now minister. And everyone's like, yeah, that sounds cool. We're chill about this. I'm like, yeah, but it's not. Like, one person said it, and everyone was like, yeah.
Only the people at the Battle of Hogwarts got to vote that year. What a crazy...
Preferential
Crazy
voting.
election.
Like, they were done with the battle, and then they were like, raise your wands if you're cool with this. Okay, yeah. That's a majority.
It also might have been that there was like within the United States, right? If the president dies, then it's the vice president who takes over. And if the vice president also dies, then it's the House Speaker. So it may be that Kingsley was just like 26 degrees removed. They were like, oh, shoot. Did you see? It was Pius Thickneys, who's dead. And then it was Voldemort for some reason. Don't know how that got in the bylaws. And then it was Lucius, and then it was blah, 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 and then it was blah, blah, blah. Or not Lucius, but there's just like all these Death Eaters that died. And then they were like, oh, they forgot to take Kingsley off the list. That's great.
Yeah. Well, it very well could be, I mean, not just like that there were Death Eaters, but also they're running a corrupt government by that point.
For sure.
Because of everything. And so once they get around to like ousting all the people who were involved in the corruption, I think very well Kingsley was just somewhere in the running, and everybody above him was not on the up and up.
I think, though, that any time when something like this happened, you would start with a clean slate, and you'd be like, we'll follow the new process that we want to follow, instead of looking of what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, I mean, Kingsley had already had to like flee by that point, so he wasn't really a part of things. So if they did wipe everything out, very well could have just been literally like the Order of the Phoenix being like, here's our new government.
Here's our new government. It's the Order of the Phoenix. I think it's one of the reasons why we don't have an immediate sequel, like we didn't get a Harry Potter book 8, is because Kingsley gets these emergency powers, and like Julius Caesar does not give them up, and it's really disappointing. And no fan wants to read about Kingsley being the emperor for 10 years.
Ugh, I've read a fanfic with that in it, and it was very upsetting. I was like, Kingsley, no!
Why?
You were supposed to be the good one.
You were supposed to be the chosen one.
I think genuinely that is probably going to be part of the problem, that way before, the end of Fudge's term, the government is already very corrupt. Lucius just buys himself whatever he wants. So I think realistically you would have to relook at the whole system and start it from scratch and put safeguards in. If you just are like, all right, we're going to get rid of all the people that we think are shady and then just restart the system as it is, you're just going to have the same problems again.
Right.
Weird death penalty chair from Fantastic Beasts for anybody that bribes the government with money.
They're going to get shipped to America, and then they're going to get the death penalty. And no one ever flees during that process.
No one ever.
That has not happened.
Not once. Oh, I wish they'd finish those movies. It's fine. That's not what this is about. I think it's interesting in terms of regarding how Scrimgeour dealt with Dumbledore's will. I still think it's wildly inappropriate that the Minister of Magic was like, I'm going to do this clerical job of delving out the will. Like, I understand that he's trying to get a face-to-face meeting with Harry, and like this is a way to do that, but already Scrimgeour misuses his power to put himself into a position that obviously is somebody else. Because I tell you what, the Minister of Magic is not going around the United Kingdom or whatever countries are encompassed by this magical government. He's not going around going, all right, well, here's your will. Oh, and here's your will, and here's your will. He'd be the most unpopular political figure ever. They would only associate with him with death, and they'd never win a new election.
You don't think Scrimgeour was the executor of Dumbledore's estate?
I don't.
Sorry, I had to spin that image further. I was like, and he always travels by Thestral.
Could be a way of sussing out murders.
Yeah.
If you see that you arrive, if you know that person couldn't see Thestrals before and you arrive on a Thestral and they can clearly see it, well.
I know you did it. That sounds like British justice. That's the only sense of trial we need. Well, good. That was a good one. Thank you, Books and Magic, first time commenter.
Yes, that was excellent.
We love having comments from y'all.
Thank you so much.
So, before we dive in, huge thank you to Sam Omen over on our Patreon who bought this round of drinks at the pub.
Woo! Thank you. There's a big round of drinks.
Yeah, it's a very big round this time because we're all here. So, if you'd like to buy us a round at the pub, you can head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks with numeral 3 to sign up. And we're offering bonus content, chats with the hosts, and on-episode shoutouts to our patrons. We'd really appreciate your help in keeping the lights on at the Three Broomsticks so we can talk about Harry Potter for a long time to come. Thank you so much, Sam. And now, on to our Sam for the chapter summary.
Yes, welcome to my chapter summary, read aloud for all of your listening pleasures. It's almost as long as the chapter itself.
Oh my God, Sam! I just scrolled through the doc. I feel like I could go make myself another cup of tea, read a good book. Patrick, you have time to catch up on the chapter.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. This is great. It seems like he's got all the pertinent information there that I need. So this is wonderful. I'm sure it'll be 100% accurate too. Yeah,
100% accurate and really helpful. I'm sure, as always.
You certainly had a lot of feelings about it, Sam. So
I did, and apparently I couldn't get that out in the main discussion, just the chapter summary. All right, here we go. In a chapter stuffed with the typical Potter Christmas pleasantries, exposition, intimation, subjugation, and horrible factoids about the world that we love to dive into, the reader is completely submerged into what Phineas Nigellus Black calls adolescent agonizing.
Those were a lot of big words.
Seriously, did you swallow a thesaurus?
I did, always. I'm a high school English teacher. What do you expect? High school is what I was about to say, and that's not right at all. Harry is at his all-time I don't like order because Harry's so moody heights. There is no better word for it, y'all. He is spiraling. A 100-year-old man won't look him in the eyes. His future wife is talking behind his back. His two best friends think he's touched in the head. Sirius hates him. Buckbeak is planning to eat him. And worst of all, Mrs. Weasley has not yet offered to feed him.
Lies and slander. I reread this chapter. She offers to feed him every other paragraph.
Yes.
Sam, this is fake
times.
news.
So many times.
Never. She never does. Harry is all afluster that Voldemort's secret weapon is him, and he's been possessed, and he will kill everyone around him with his fangs of poison. So he shoves himself up in his room, and he thinks the Weasleys won't talk to him because he's dangerous, instead of realizing they almost lost Arthur and might be going through it. Harry's really self-centered for the first half of this chapter, as is Sirius in parts, hate to say it, but it's a good thing that Ginny has the gusto to face him head-on, putting Harry in his place for not talking to her about being possessed by Tom Elvis Riddle, or checking in with Ron to see if he flew down to London for a quick snack as a snake. After all that's sorted, and Harry realizes he has nothing to do with almost killing Arthur, he can actually enjoy the holidays, with no mention of him checking on Ginny, Ron, Fred, George, or Mrs. Weasley to see if they're okay and if they need comfort. But lo and behold, Mundungus, has, and I'm quoting here, obtained a great Christmas tree and decorated it with live fairies, which seems both dubious and unethical to the fairy community. Christmas occurs. Presents are opened. Percy does a truly horrible, awful thing, and he should have died instead of Fred. Hermione gives Creature something handmade, and they get a good glimpse to where Creature is right at that moment, with Auntie Bella, who's ovulating once more and needs Voldemort to give her a child. See Cursed Child for future details. It's off to see Arthur Weasley, who's having trouble with the special proprieties of the snake's venom. As it's revealed, he and the healer have tried to sew up the skin. What a stupid idea. And Mrs. Weasley starts to have a conniption. The main trio, plus Ginny, tantalizing us with the idea that Ginny might become part of the main group, run into Professor Lockhart, living in a permanent care medical ward. After a light-hearted jaunt through Gilderoy's terrible ordeal and the lasting effects of memory damage and mental health, Rowling shows us the ugly side of magic, mental health, and the mix of the two, revealing the tragic backstory of Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom, Auntie Bella, Barty Crouch Jr., and the torturous visits Neville takes to St. Mungo's. But don't worry, folks, it's still a kid book, and we end up with Lockhart's simple blustering.
Woo!
Yeah, that about covers it.
All right, podcast on.
That was a journey.
Yeah, everyone, thanks so much for coming. See you next time at the 3 Broomsticks.
What?
Hey, no, I'm not finished with my drink yet. So you stay where you are. Stay in your chair.
As Phineas says, stay.
So, the chapter.
The chapter!
I got to this doc first for a change because I only had time on like Tuesday, which then today meant I was like, oh, do I remember enough of the chapter? So I've structured this chapter into like different sections, and I called this section, and you can obviously debate this with me, but Harry's spiral into self-doubt.
Yeah.
Seems accurate.
That's where we're really starting off.
Checks out.
Extremely accurate.
And I put in some quotes, and I think this first one I've put in here. I think it really came home to me how close Harry is with his in his self-doubt spiral about what's going on. So the quote goes: "Was this why Dumbledore would no longer meet Harry's eyes? Did he expect to see Voldemort staring out of them, afraid, perhaps, that their vivid green might turn suddenly to scarlet, with cat-like slits for pupils?" This is pretty close as to why Dumbledore's not looking into Harry's eyes.
Yeah.
He's sort of like right about the big picture, but he's so wrong on two main things, right? So he's completely wrong on how the possession works, which we're going to get into later, like when Ginny is talking about her possession. But basically, like, you know, Harry thinks, like, if Voldemort is possessing me, then I am basically, like, his puppet to do with, like, as he will. Which, like, no, that's not what's going on here. But also, and this is part of Harry's angst in the book, like, Harry thinks that Dumbledore would be worried of Harry the puppet, as opposed to Dumbledore being worried for Harry being possessed by Voldemort. And I feel like that's sort of like the really crucial distinction there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just that the specific why he's not making eye contact. And, you know, in the split second that they have eye contact just before Dumbledore sends him off with the port key, that is when he feels like he's Voldemort again.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And he does have a taint of Voldemort, kind of, not quite in the way that he's probably thinking.
That is
a
terrible phrase. I don't like it.
Taint.
No. He goes up there with the monster in the next book. Ugh.
Grr, arg.
I hope there is like some kind of a Wizard Rock parody of Tainted Love, but Taint of Voldemort. Now that I'm thinking of it.
Hold on, let me search for taint within your Wizard Rock resource.
That sounds like a horrible decision.
Let's go there.
Wait, what have I come up with?
Only Irvin would.
Control F, taint. Okay. Ooh, yes, there is a song called I'm Sorry, Harry Potter, and I suppose I should be sorry for bringing that up.
Okay.
At least you didn't control F in some fan fiction.
You wouldn't even have to control F, it'd be in every paragraph.
Well, right. Now that we, I don't know how we're going to move away from this, so it's just going to have to be abrupt. And then I think the self-spiral continues, and he then very quickly leaps to the conclusion that he is the weapon from, the thing that they overheard in the summer about what not even overheard, what Sirius and the rest of the Order sort of hinted to or alluded to, that they're looking for a weapon, something that Voldemort doesn't have. And that is just makes me a bit sad for Harry, because I'm just like, boy, that was a big leap to take, and it's such a sad leap to take as well.
It really is. And there's this whole, like, paragraph of his inner monologue that, someone here put in the doc.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. And it's just Harry being such a main character. It's like, I'm the one Voldemort's trying to use. That's why they've got guards around me everywhere I go. It's not for my protection, it's for other people's, only it's not working. They can't have someone on me all the time at Hogwarts. I did attack Mr. Weasley last night. It was me. Voldemort made me do it, and he could be inside me listening to my thoughts right now.
Okay,
and
I have a question. That might betray something about the inner workings of my mind, and for that I apologize in advance. I mean, aren't we all, by definition, main characters in our own stories? So not that we can't step away of that on reflection, but isn't it natural, especially in the times of stress, when, you know, perspective and self-awareness is harder to come by, to kind of for your mind to go in that direction first? So I don't really think it's a particular character flaw of Harry's. I think it's quite general human condition. Or is it just me?
You've asked us a question about a psychological study that is still yet to be, like, fairly concluded upon. There are people who absolutely see themselves as the heroes of their own stories, and there are people who don't. And so it just kind of depends on who you are. And people grow out of either phase. So sometimes they grow up feeling like, well, I'm not the main character, and then they do, and in reverse, you know, you grow up thinking you are the main character, and then you don't. So to me, this is Harry's at his most, as Phineas says, adolescent agonizing, and it's just wrought with the logic of a 15-year-old. We talked about this for half a second on the Deathly Hallows chapter where Christian Richardson and I and Sierra, and I'm forgetting the other host on there. Has someone help me?
No help is forthcoming.
It was probably someone here.
Definitely one of us.
Excellent.
Anyways.
It was probably
Oreo.
not Patrick.
It was Oreo.
Early was on there with us too. And we talked about how Harry sort of has this eureka moment where he goes mad scientist, and he's like completely 100% right about the resurrection stone being in the snitch. But you can see right here, this type of logic is why Hermione doesn't believe him, because he's like, I'm the one Voldemort's using. It's not for my protection. I attacked him. Oh my God, it was me. For Sierra, who's the only one who will get this reference, it's a real Gurr moment where he's going, it was me all along.
Yeah, but okay. So to push back again against Ev, I'm like, well, first of all, I don't view this as a flaw in Harry so much as like a completely understandable aspect of his character. I just thought it worth highlighting. So it's not the fact that he's like the main character of his own story. It's that this paragraph screams like he's the main character of the story, right? Like, this isn't just a like, here's what's happening to me. He's like, no, like, I attacked Mr. Weasley. Everyone is afraid of me and protecting me, and Voldemort is obsessing over me. Like, you know, it's not just that, like, this is my story and I'm the main character. It's just, this is the war. This is what everyone is working on and thinking about, and I am the main character.
Okay, yes,
Which,
I understand that.
He's not totally wrong.
He's not wrong. The truth is, okay, he's not the weapon. I mean, the truth is there is no weapon, really. But,
Yeah.
like, what they're all
Knowledge.
guarding is the prophecy about him and Voldemort. So it's like, he's not wrong that he, in a way, is the main focus of what's going on, and that the snake attack happened in order to get this prophecy about him and Voldemort. So, like, it is all about him, just not in the way he thinks it is.
Yeah, but, well, it's kind of like the first paragraph, right? Where, like, he got, like, the broad stroke right, that, like, it's about him. But, like, the particulars of, like, he thinks that, like, they're guarding him instead of the prophecy. He thinks that Voldemort is, like, listening to him right now. So, like, it's not that much about him as he thinks. Still very much about him, but not quite there.
Yeah, but, like, I honestly really don't blame him for this, because yes, the logic doesn't completely make sense, but it is, like, it's a very scary situation that seems, like, outside the bounds of, like, what he understands as normal magic. And he's like, so anything could be possible. Like, he's like, you know, he has no idea, and so he's just scared. So, I don't blame him for catastrophizing a bit.
Yeah, I think it's also an interesting reminder that both Harry and the reader at this point still don't know fully the parameters of magic.
Right.
I feel like with the hindsight of Deathly Hallows and Beetle the Bard and the Apocrypha and all that, we're like, obviously this is all ridiculous. But like Harry, who's been at this for 4 years and, let's be honest, does not have the intellectual curiosity of someone like Hermione, like doesn't know that like he can't be turned into a snake and transported across the country. So I feel like that's also a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's fairly unusual, especially at this point in the series, to have a character like and a reader who doesn't know how magic works and to not have the reader frustrated by that. Because I feel like a lot of the times in sort of more detailed magic systems, sort of by the fifth, 800-page book, you're like, I feel like I should know what's going on here. But we're just like, because Harry's not an intellectually curious narrator, we're just like, yeah, no, we're gonna kind of learn as we go with Harry, and that's fine.
And also, I think because the situation is so unique, like a lot of those, like, these are the rules, and then here's the Harry exception rule, because what's happening is unique. And I think another thing to keep in mind is from summer to Christmas, Harry's felt like he was alone against the world.
Yeah.
Because, no one in school believes him. So it's not, I think, that ridiculous that he feels once again that he's alone against everyone in this situation.
Rowling goes and sort of tries to fix some of this misunderstanding from Harry in the very next chapter on occlumency, where Snape is like, time and space still matter, Potter. And you're like, oh, okay, cool magic system, thanks.
Be like, they do? What? Really?
we had no idea.
If you say so.
Well, not to Harry and Voldemort, but for normal people.
Harry's head is a periscope.
Here are the rules. Here's the Harry exception.
Yeah.
I then, because Harry tries to, as we've dubbed mad scientist, find solutions as to how he became a snake in London when, his body was in Scotland. And his solution is, it must be an animagus, which, after 2 years of the solution being, it was an animagus. You can see why he jumps to this conclusion, but it's,
Yeah, I mean, also, this is another case where the reader is absolutely on the same page as Harry, because I remember, back in the day before Deathly Hallows came out, there were theories that every single person in this series was an animagus. Everyone from Slughorn to Dennis Bishop was going to be a secret animagus. And
they all might be.
And I have MuggleNet essays to prove every single one of them. Because after 2 years of secret animagus being the solution, and also Rowling's penchant for describing people like animals, we're like, aha, Snape is a bat.
Scrimgeour is a lion.
It all makes sense.
It all makes sense. Eureka, I've got it.
Yeah, so I think people need to remember that something like something else doesn't mean it is that other thing.
Yes, figurative language.
Exactly, yes.
But then once Harry's done with theorizing and completely very much working out exactly everything that's happening, Harry's saving people thing comes in, and his solution is, I need to leave because I am the problem and everyone's not safe if I'm not here.
He basically goes, it's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me.
Yes.
Which is also hilarious because the last time he thinks he's the problem from Scotland to London, but moving just somewhere slightly away from the building that he's currently in is going to save everybody.
I'm a 15-minute drive from here. It's crazy.
I see why he would think running away or distancing himself might be a solution, but yeah, to Sierra's point, would you not go further than just also the same country? Would you not go abroad? And then, why Privet Drive? Why would that be the only thing that you know?
It's because time and space matter in magic.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that.
Time and space also matters in in regular life, because he's 15, it's 90s UK. People don't just randomly go abroad just whenever they feel like it in the same way as they might do now. I'm not sure Harry even ever been abroad, so because Dursleys wouldn't have taken him on a family holiday to Spain or something. So I don't think that would actually naturally occur to him to go abroad. He does have the money, because we know he has plenty of galleons in Gringotts, but moving abroad as a teenager, that's a lot of grown-up planning. And we know how camping worked out in Deathly Hallows. They could barely feed themselves, and that's when Hermione was with him. And she did at least a little bit of packing, which he didn't even think about. And Privet Drive is the only place he ever leaves Hogwarts to, apart from when he goes to Weasley's. So, and when he's in this kind of a mental space of, I need to exile myself, I need to punish myself for being the problem. This is the spot where his mind goes to when he's in a bad place emotionally, from my point of view. So I think that's why he's like, this is where I have to go. And as Irvin mentions very reasonably, that he probably doesn't care if he turns into a snake and eats Dursleys in his sleep.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a collateral damage.
He's much less fussed about attacking the Dursleys in his sleep.
Oh no, I have to go to the Dursleys. What if I kill them? Oh boy.
Hey, gosh, wouldn't that be unfortunate if I bit them as a giant snake? I just hate it.
Yeah, like, I don't think Harry is like a murderer as such, but if he felt like he had to as a snake, Dursleys would probably be higher on the list than, his friends and found family.
Yeah, he'd lose much less sleep
Vernon
over it.
seems like a tasty snack.
Seems like a tasty snack. I think he's much more than a
Petunia,
snack.
too bony. Vernon, a snack from midnight. Excellent.
Yes.
Dursleys, Harry's tasty snack.
It sounds like a new type of Wizarding World candy that they're going to put out next year.
Yes, with a side of Petunia.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? I don't know how far away Surrey is from Grimmauld Place, but it'd be really funny if you had Harry got up, left, and then walked a block and was like, oh, shoot, here I am.
I'd assume about 2.5 hours.
Okay, cool. That makes more sense.
Because it's
Not
somewhere
on
in
foot.
England, isn't it?
Well, he does fly
Yeah.
from Surrey to Grimmauld Place, and it
But
takes a while.
Mad Eye Moody's crazy, so it could have been a 3-second walk.
That would have been hilarious. They go around in circles so many times. He's like, I have no idea where I am.
I'm pretty sure on that episode, that was the 7 things, was the 7 different directions.
I think you're right.
So guys, according to Google Maps, a walk from Scotland to Surrey would take 168 hours.
It's not Scotland. It's,
that's
it's
a
London.
week.
He's in London.
Yeah. I was going to say, Grimmauld Place is somewhere central
Oh, yeah,
London.
sorry,
and
London.
then
Sorry to
Privet
London.
Drive is outside of London.
So basically, Harry could walk to Scotland in the amount of time it takes him to take the Hogwarts Express.
Oh, okay, sorry. Only 9 hours and 8 minutes according to Google Maps.
Oh,
London
literally
to
in a
Surrey.
day.
Yeah, so he can have a walk. Or he can cycle 2.5 hours.
No, but he might possess the bike and attack someone with the brake chain.
Are bikes sentient now?
If it's Mr. Weasley's bike, yes.
For sure. His little tricycle children.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just so funny how much he is in panic mode and not thinking. It's very reminiscent of when he runs away from the Dursleys and Prisoner, and he's like, all right, I have a plan. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I have Step 1, leave. That's great. Done.
Yeah, we discussed this on the Scrimgeour episode. It's a perfect Gryffindor plan.
Yes.
Step 1, run away. Step 2, do it now. Step 3,
Profit.
Survive.
yes.
Yeah, I think his thought process is just so funny, but it's also on track here with all of his ideas of he could be watching right now. The Order isn't safe because Voldemort has clearly got eyes through me at this particular moment and can see everybody who's here. It is very much kind of some of the reasoning we were given in the, I'm creating a new title here, Why Didn't Snape episode? Because a lot of our reasoning of why Snape didn't do a whole lot of things is because, oh, well, if Voldemort was looking through Harry's eyes, he would see Snape being helpful. And I'm kind of coming to this conclusion here. That's not really, we have not seen a way that has happened. It's only been the other way around, where Harry's seeing what Voldemort's up to, and Voldemort is like giving Harry things to think about, but it's what's going on in Voldemort's mind, not what's going on in Harry's mind. We haven't seen any evidence that Voldemort knows anything that Harry has seen or experienced. And I feel like if you have a spy, especially, who's in the inner circle with Voldemort, you would know, hey, he's like constantly looking and through Harry's eyes and can see all these things. And that's when it's like, I guess Snape's whole explanation in the next chapter of like time and space matter. But it does seem that, you know, like Voldemort can't actively look into Harry's mind unless he's there. And so if he's not going to be right next to Voldemort, then I don't know why we're all so fussed exactly.
But I thought our assumption is that when Harry looks at Dumbledore and feels like that snake stuff come back, that was Voldemort, like, seeing through Harry, but I'm not sure that we really have much evidence of any other times. Mm-mm. But yeah, I think part of it is emotions too, that like Harry sees through Voldemort's mind when he's feeling like murderous levels of rage, and perhaps Harry's just angsty teenager rage is not enough to forge that connection.
Yeah.
You heard it here
actually,
first. Teenage angst and murderous rage, not the same.
Depends on the level of angst.
True.
I mean, we do see it at the end of this very book when he fails to do the Cruciatus on Bellatrix.
Yeah.
True.
Look at you being reasonable, Aurelia.
Sorry.
But actually, I want to go back to the Voldemort possessing him. So before, like, 24 hours before this chapter, Voldemort didn't know about the connection. Yep. So he couldn't possess him. Like, it was only the attack on Arthur Weasley that Voldemort was like, wait, what? What's that niggling little thing in my mind?
Who's in here?
And I think sort of soon after that, Voldemort... And in this chapter is when Kreacher goes to Narcissa Malfoy, allowing Voldemort to hatch the plan of luring Harry to the Department of Mysteries. So I feel like after sort of like the one time where Voldemort was like, huh? What? He purposefully didn't possess Harry to not sort of tip his hand that he was doing that, so Harry could be lured to the Department of Mysteries. Like, does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
I could see that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I still don't know, like, yeah, can he, like, would he have been able, if he wanted to, would he have been able to just, like, tune into Harry whenever? Or, like, does there have to be a certain level of, like, emotions or something? Like, you know, because usually with Harry we see, like, that it's not like Harry just, like, tunes into Voldemort whenever. So, yeah, I'm not clear, like, would he have been able to just look through Harry's eyes at any moment of the day, or would it have had to be a specific type of situation? I don't know.
Well, does the possession involve looking through Harry's eyes or, like, controlling Harry? Because, like, when we see him possess Harry, it's not like he's trying to glean information. I think he's, like, trying to bite Dumbledore.
Also, the only time we see Voldemort actually possess Harry is when time and space still matters and they are in the same room together.
Right.
We see Voldemort push and prod throughout from Christmas until the Department of Mysteries, right? We have Harry gets farther along into the room of the Department of Mysteries than he's ever been before. There's textual evidence of Voldemort sort of planting little tidbits as we go that lead up to Voldemort then sort of being full sort of Sauron mode and manipulating him directly inside his own head with a vision of Sirius. But it's never true possession until they're in the same room.
Yeah. And I never thought that Harry thinking about biting Dumbledore was Voldemort actually actively trying to get Harry to bite Dumbledore. I thought it was,
bite him now. Do it. Bite him. Bite the old man.
No, I thought it was more just like Voldemort was looking through Harry's eyes, seeing Dumbledore and being like, God, I hate that man so much. Like, I just wish I could, and that's how it like expressed in Harry's mind. Like, I didn't really see it as, he's trying to control Harry to make him do that. I thought it was more like an emotional reaction. But yeah, it seems to me that it has to be like, this connection has to happen in like more vulnerable times, like when Harry's asleep, or maybe when he's feeling particularly strong emotions. Like, I don't know. It's not entirely clear, like, when Voldemort is able to look through Harry's eyes, but. Yeah.
I think you're right that a lot of the times the connection seems to be on emotions. I think this year is sort of the exception with him actively planting those visions of the Department of Mysteries. But definitely the whole time through Deathly Hallows, Harry's like tuning in whenever Voldemort has strong emotions. And I think we can safely assume that Voldemort at that point isn't even aware anymore that Harry is able to tap into his mind. Yeah.
Right.
Which is quite interesting if you think about it, because the Tom Riddle that went to school, was always shown to be like very good with planning. Was this the Voldemort that was resurrected, and maybe it's because he has Gryffindor blood in him now? Seems to not be very good with planning.
It's the taint of Gryffindor.
Oh my God!
I'm telling Grace Candido you said that. I want to see her face.
That's so
the
funny.
7 taints. That's our daily special this time.
Oh my God.
Because if we think about it, this plan to get Harry into the Department of Mysteries, aside from Voldemort planning those visions, seems to, Lucius seems to be involved. The year after, it's definitely mostly Draco Malfoy doing the planning. It's like Voldemort doesn't do that much planning once he has his body back.
Maybe his intellectual capacities are a little hampered because he's doing so much occlumency against Harry the whole time, and or that his soul is split into 7, and maybe some of your intellect goes with your soul.
Also, he's a lot older, so
yeah,
his executive functioning is bad because he's in his 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like when we see Tom Riddle has like one plan at a time, right? Whereas Voldemort is like planning a whole taking over all of wizarding society. So like each individual plan he's going to delegate a little bit more, right?
Yeah, that's true. He's essentially become a middle manager project overviewer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is another job option, I guess, in the wizarding world after all.
Yeah. And I guess we also don't completely know, like, okay, so Harry has a little bit of Voldemort's soul in him, but, like, we don't really know, like, to what extent, like, how that relationship is different, being the person who has a little bit of someone's soul in them versus having a little bit of your soul in someone else. So it's like there could be different parts of that. Like that relationship could be different between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like how Harry experiences the relationship with Voldemort might not be the same way that Voldemort experiences the relationship with him, and we don't really have enough evidence to say.
Yeah, because the only other living being is Nagini, which we know that Voldemort can get into, but he's also been able to possess other creatures before. And it's not like Voldemort's experimenting by zerping into the locket and being like, yeah, this basin is cool. Nice. Good job, me. And then like, oh, the vault in Gringotts, excellent.
Right. And Nagini is a snake, and so it's a lot simpler to possess an animal versus a human. Yeah. So it's just like a very different type of relationship. And it's like, Yeah, I don't know. And now that he has less connection to each of his soul parts, you know, does Harry have a stronger connection to his soul because it's like to Voldemort's main soul because it's like the main thing? Like he might have a stronger ability to connect with that than Voldemort has to connect with him. Like we don't know what that two-way relationship looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Good stuff. So, on a lighter note, let's talk about Phineas Nigellus.
The worst headmaster Hogwarts has ever seen, and a feature.
You know what?
in
The
Hogwarts
headmaster
Legacy.
we needed in this moment.
not the one we deserved, but the one that we needed.
Exactly.
But then he's really only, you know, relaying messages from the headmaster that we do
Deserve.
probably actually need.
He's not only doing that, I think, because he sort of helps snap Harry out of his funk a little bit by questioning his Gryffindor allegiance and appealing to his values, because I think it bothers Harry what he says, and it does slow him down. And I know Ginny is really the one who kind of helps him out in the end, but if he left, she wouldn't be able to do that. So really, Phineas is kind of an MVP of the chapter for me.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I kind of want to see, you know, when we obviously get the memories later on, and we obviously see Dumbledore interact with the portraits and you know, having them support him in his work. But I kind of want to see this moment, how he's in his office and is like, so Phineas, keep an eye on Harry. At some point, I assume he's going to start running away. Please stop him from doing that. Like, what is the actual... Because we often see Phineas being reluctant to do anything for Dumbledore or anyone else, I would assume. So I kind of want to have a sneak peek of how this moment went down.
Does that kind of remind you of Aberforth a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, it is kind of just like, at the end of the day, is he kind of almost acting like he doesn't care? I mean, I think we know Phineas probably really doesn't, but like, I don't know. I think I just spent the last however long you guys were talking reading like the first half of the chapter. So, so I have just recently read that part, and I was just struck by like, yeah, it does. While he, you know, playing Hogwarts Legacy kind of gives you a bit of an impression of Phineas.
Yeah.
But like, it does seem like he could have left earlier than he had to in that conversation, and I kind of just, I don't know, I got kind of Aberforth vibes there, where it's like kind of partly it feels like a reluctance to help, but also like a willingness to help, and also like maybe begrudging, you know. But he also did end up helping, I think. So I
think Phineas leaves because he accidentally almost spills some secrets.
Yeah.
Like, Harry's like, aha, so you are planning. He is planning something with me. And Phineas is like, did I do that? And then he's like, all right, see you, bye. And then leaves in a panic and sort of has a panic attack in between portraits before he comes back all suave and says, yes, this is an idiot teenager, but he will stay.
Yeah.
That was not my reading. Like, my impression is that he does not particularly enjoy interacting with Harry, so he, like, comes in, says his bit, sasses the teenager, and then calls it a day. But I also think he does slightly play up how begrudging he is, because it can't be a particularly interesting existence as a portrait, and I feel like the opportunity to sass a teenager actually kind of brightens his day. That's kind of my reading of it.
I definitely, I think that, okay, we know that the portraits are, like, honor bound to do what the, you know, headmaster, to serve the headmaster. So, like, he doesn't have a choice, but I do think that, you know, I think he likes being part of the action. I think he likes being someone who has to be relied on, even though people don't like him. And I think that, like, brings him a certain joy of, like, nobody likes me very much, but they still have to deal with me because I'm the only one who can go into this portrait, and I'm the only one, you know, I think he enjoys that.
Yeah.
It gives him something to do.
Yeah. And, like, honestly, like, Ev, I'm with you that he's the MVP, because, like, after all of the Gryffindor angst that we just read through, I was like, we need it. We need a bit of Slytherin sass.
We have to have a discussion about what most valuable player means for this chapter, because in no way in my head is Phineas the MVP. He is, and anybody who follows basketball will understand this, he's John Stockton. He's the one who passes the ball to Karl Malone, a.k.a. Ginny, who then dunks it. And he's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. But Karl Malone won the MVP and not John Stockton. Ginny is the one who gets teed up for sure. But the fact that Phineas does his due diligence of getting Harry to stay means that Ginny can partake of her part, which is to absolutely lambast Harry back into his place and stop being an absolute buffoon.
Yeah.
It's not that he does it. It's how he does it.
Oh,
Exactly.
sure. He does it great. But that's not the most valuable part. Getting Harry to stay isn't what helps Harry the most. Getting Harry out of his funk is what is the most helpful in this chapter, in my opinion.
No, the most valuable part is breaking up the Gryffindor angst for the reader. And there,
No.
Phineas is the most valuable.
Nah, I don't know that it breaks up that angst that much, because we still have so much angst for the rest of the chapter with Harry.
Yeah, but it actually allows the reader to laugh a bit in the middle of it, of, I'm the weapon, it's me,
Irvin.
I can't talk to people.
Irvin, if Ginny doesn't say anything...
I think it's a little bit of perspective. I think it's perspective because he is it. Because when you're in that state of mind where you're catastrophizing, you're ruminating, all of that kind of stuff, having somebody who is completely outside of what's going on is important, even if he is not the nicest person in the world.
Yeah, but to that point, I think I'm with Sam. I think Ginny's the MVP. I would add a third person into your basketball reference because without Hermione, I don't think we get Harry to talk to Ginny.
100%. But I think that Hermione and Phineas fill the sort of same role, which is allowing Ginny to play her biggest role. Because if Ginny doesn't say anything, if we don't get to that Ginny moment, all that agonizing, that adolescent agonizing, that Gryffindor angst continues and continues and continues and continues. She's the actual one who gets to shut it down, which means, in my book, she's the MVP.
Yeah, but I don't know if she, and I hate to do this because I don't want to just sit here and talk about how great Hermione is, but I'm going to probably have to do it. I don't think that Ginny would have done that had it not been for Hermione, and specifically for what, and again, I just read this like a page ago, but like, Dumbledore informed, caught Hermione or got Hermione up to speed on everything that was happening. And then she shows up and goes and talks to Harry, who's been like hiding all day or whatever. And she says, now, I don't know what the order of events here is, but it would be really interesting to see that, like you were saying earlier in the TV show. Like, was it Dumbledore's idea to send Hermione to try to find Harry because he knew he was having trouble because Phineas reported back to him? Whose idea was it to send sandwiches up to the room to even initiate all this stuff? Ron and Ginny are waiting there. Did Hermione tell those two people to go up there and wait and say, I'll go get Harry? Or was Mrs. Weasley's idea to do some of this stuff? Or did Dumbledore tell Hermione, like, he'll listen to you, he won't listen to Ron for whatever reason, but you need to go get him and you guys need to explain things? Like, how much of it was sort of planned out? How much of it was Hermione's idea? And so I actually think Hermione's probably the one in all of this that put a lot of these things together, these whether, so that Ginny could come out and say the statement she needed to say that really was kind of to kick Harry in the butt,
I would love to think that Dumbledore planned the entire thing down to the sandwiches.
I don't know. I mean, he knew that Harry was going to leave. Like, he specifically, which, I mean, I think is probably a safe assumption, but like, he sent Phineas there, and then Phineas had to watch over him all night long and stuff. So I'm sure he knew he wasn't sleeping well and all that stuff. So like, and Dumbledore specifically had sent Hermione there, basically. So I don't know.
I don't love it. I think it's getting a little close to the omnipotent Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was generally just like, Harry's friends had to rally. And I feel like it's sort of more impactful if they did that sort of their own volition without Dumbledore.
They're just good friends.
Yeah.
But anyway, they can share MVP status, Sam. That's okay.
Sure.
That's not how.
That's not how it works. No one's ever had co-MVPs except for an all-star game. So if you want to say this is a meaningless moment, absolutely. I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm just teasing.
I don't understand sports, so.
Yeah, no, Sam, speak English.
Listen,
I understand you perfectly well, Sam. It made all the sense.
The people who score on offense are the people that get the MVP. Ginny's the only one with a dunk here. Everyone else is set up.
Okay, touchdown. Yeah, okay.
Go sports.
Yeah, that's almost what happens in basketball.
Yep, so close.
Anyway.
So they're a great team. They're a great team.
Yes, well done.
That's well, the only
Okay,
sports thing
that's
that I
our
can
takeaway.
do. There we go. Team is good.
Go team.
They're good friends.
There's I'm not sure if we actually want to go into this, but I'm always conscious that Sam is actually a teacher. So the thing that stands out to me is like Phineas and Jealous saying, "This is precisely why I loved being a teacher." And I'm sure we all had teachers where you as a student sat there, was like, "Why on earth are you a teacher?
Yeah.
You clearly hate everything about this."
8th grade earth science. I will forever be bitter.
Yeah, I think things have moved on a little bit, because definitely in the 90s and for a while before that, you didn't, at least in the UK and probably in other places potentially too, you didn't have to necessarily have a teaching qualification to be a teacher. So a whole bunch of people sort of washed up in teaching that couldn't get something else. My husband, for example, had a teacher at school who hated teaching, hated kids, especially the ones who were better. I think he was a maths teacher who were better at maths than he was when he was in school. So there was this kind of a weird thing that also there's a power dynamic, because you have you have more control over people who are smaller and weaker, sometimes weaker than you, and can't easily leave. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, only people who really care about teaching and care about kids would be teachers. But there is a huge variation, and there used to be more of that in the past. Another good teacher story I really like is when one of my husband's classmates got thrown out of the window by a teacher.
What?
And literally
I'm
nothing
sorry,
happened.
in what century? Like, when Dickens was around?
No. My husband's not that old. He's only 4 years older than me. So, so all sorts of things went on with very little consequences, and things have moved on in a better direction. But I think people, especially younger people, they kind of forget that all sorts of things like that took place. Routinely.
Wow, now I better understand why, like, Hogwarts is so lax about, like, teachers can kind of do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot less regulated in that way.
I had a handful of teachers who definitely pushed the boundaries, threw staplers across the room and books and all sorts of stuff, and we were kind of like, no. You have the proper temperament to be here.
Yeah, there was in my class there was a boy who was told that if he doesn't shut up, he would get his mouth taped up, and he didn't shut up, and he got his mouth taped up for the duration of the class.
That's just
yeah. To be honest, everybody was kind of on her side for that.
Still, that is illegal.
But is it wrong?
I think most teachers don't go into the profession loathing teaching, right? They don't come in there to screw up kids or whatever.
Hopefully not. No.
I think, and in general, I hear a lot like, oh, those who can't teach, and there's certainly a semblance of that, of like people who wish they could have done better and so get into coaching or teaching in some way, shape, or form. In general, the actual good teachers is not just people who can't, because they are doing what they want, what they love to do. They are at their best in the teaching classroom. And so I find that sentiment offensive of those who can't teach, especially because I feel like there are a great many people who are like, oh, you know what? I was a student. Teaching is a weird thing because everyone's been on the flip side of it. Everybody has seen a teacher and has opinions about teaching. It's a lot of like how people sometimes think that they could make movies or they could act or they could write just because they've read or they've watched movies. Or
how hard can it be?
Yeah, exactly. How hard can it be? So I think some teachers get into it And they end up loathing it because there's no magic bullet to fixing students. The students don't like them. The students don't listen, but it becomes a hard profession to leave, especially now with the qualifications that you're supposed to have in a majority of the United States, at least. And then there aren't a lot of companies who think, oh yeah, these are transferable skills. Once you're a teacher, you kind of get pigeonholed into teaching, and it's hard to shift out. So those who come in and don't like their job, but, they have a cushy paycheck, or they don't have to work that hard, or they feel like they don't have to work that hard, is what I mean. Then they just stay, and it breeds resentment.
Well, but even look at Snape. He has to be at Hogwarts, so he kind of has to be a teacher, and he doesn't really want to do it, and he's not particularly good at it, and he hates children, but he's still there because Dumbledore wants him there.
Yeah, I don't know how many real life circumstances have prophecy, and to keep him closer, he might turn to the dark side. No,
I suppose not. But I'm sure there are circumstances where people feel like
they're trapped stay. For sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I completely hear what you're saying, that once you're a teacher, you're probably a teacher for life. Especially in Germany, you become sworn in by the state as a teacher, which is great because you're basically not fireable.
Yeah.
And that's obviously great for the teacher themselves because that means they have job security. But then it does become really difficult to ever leave the profession because that is the only thing you know how to do.
Yay, tenure.
Yeah. But talking more about Phineas, and when he takes his exit, Harry says, "Fine, go then, and tell Dumbledore thanks for nothing." And I sort of hope that Phineas just literally said that to him.
100% word for word that was relayed to Dumbledore. Like, I am convinced that serving as the sassy go-between between Harry and Dumbledore was the highlight of Phineas Nigellus' year. There's an audience that he can snark on both ends. Oh my, let's be honest, he relished this.
I think he also enjoys it much more when he's in Deathly Hallows, and he's trying to be all, "Oh, I'm so offended. You blindfolded me. Oh, I'm so offended. I'm trapped in a bag this whole time." But you have to know he's like, "This is my greatest dream. I am a spy. They don't know that I am here. I am passing all this information, and then when they finally see me, I get to sass them."
Yes. That he hangs out in his portrait, thinking up good one-liners, practicing his comebacks.
How far out of their frame do you think they can hear? Because Harry's yelling this at an empty frame at this point.
I mean, since Phineas Nigellus has kind of giggled, or not giggled, whatever, laughed at Harry in the past. Snickered, that's the word, at Harry in the past while he wasn't in the frame. I think you can kind of linger right outside your frame and still be able to hear things.
Yeah. I want to talk about, the writing craft of it, because, I alluded to this earlier, but, I think the inclusion of Phineas and all of the sass is so essential to break up the angst here. Because, without him, it would literally just be a 10-page stream of consciousness of angst from Harry. Yeah. And we really needed Phineas Nigellus here. And I actually noticed Jo do this at the very end of the chapter too, where...
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, she finally cuts the tension of the Longbottoms with Gilderoy Lockhart there.
Yeah.
And I think Jo kind of hits a pitch perfect mix here, because it's not great on either end. If it's just pure angst with no levity, it's really hard to read. If it's the last few Marvel movies where you can't go 10 seconds without a punchline, also not great in the long run. But I feel like Jo kind of sort of threads that middle line perfectly in this chapter. So yeah, no notes.
I think she's generally quite good at that. So I always think of it as as you know, the story gets to breathe. So
Yes.
you
Yeah.
kind of you have tension, and then you have release of that tension, and you have more tension again. And I notice, you know, when you're just reading it, you don't necessarily pay that much attention to it because it's not kind of natural. But sometimes reading other books, and some authors go really heavy on like sustained tension for a very long time, and I go, you know what, like I'm exhausted reading this.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's too much. Like you get kind of it loses some power as well if it just goes on too long without any kind of relief. You know, so yeah, I agree. It's good.
I think it's really nice to have
Yeah.
a sounding board, like Harry's sounding board, punch back at him, because it's essentially a little bit of what the reader is thinking too. Not that you're saying it exactly the way Phineas would, but there's a lot of, oh, come on, Harry, like get it together, that happens as a reader in this book. Even though a lot of it is earned, but especially in this spiral, having somebody that goes, hey, you're kind of being a dunderbutt, like that is so helpful.
Maybe not quite in those words, but yeah.
But yeah, we are not fully out of the angst just yet because Hermione hasn't arrived. So Ron briefly shows up and Harry goes back into spiral because he's like, oh, Ron doesn't want to talk to me. No one wants to be on their own with me anymore now that they know what was inside me.
Oh, the angst.
I think that this is, to me, this is a little worse than angst, though. I think it's pretty thoughtless. It's Harry not getting out of his own head for a second to be a good friend. Like Ron has just been through something traumatic. This is Ron's dad. And I think Harry's being a bit self-centered here by not.
I would argue it was more traumatic for Harry because Ron just found out that the bad thing happened to his dad and Harry actually lived it. And as far as he's concerned at the moment, he thinks he viciously assaulted his best friend's father. And it's not like, oh, somebody told you something. He was there.
Yeah. All that being said, I still think it might be more traumatic for Ron because of the familial link there.
I don't know that that's fair. Because, like, Harry also cares about Mr. Weasley. Like, it's not like this is a random stranger for Harry. And, yeah, like, Harry literally had his mind invaded by Voldemort. Like, yeah, I really don't think you can fault Harry for his response here, especially as a teenager.
And it wasn't just a daydream, because as far as I remember, like, he was feeling, you know, like, unwell.
Yeah, he, like, vomited afterwards.
Yeah,
he was, like, shaking.
Yeah, he was, like, it was pretty traumatic, the whole thing for him as well.
I think this is just one of those instances where, like, it's not about who had it worse. They're both horrible things.
Yeah.
And Ron has at least, like, I guess there's two sides of it. Ron has the rest of his family to also commiserate with. But they are trying to kind of, like, bring Harry into it a little bit. But also Ron's probably feeling like, my friend is up there and, like, yeah, he went through something bad, but also I feel like I need to be with my family right now and we need to be together. So, like, Harry's taking everything really personally when really it's like, I think it is just what Sam was saying about it's a little bit thoughtless because Harry's just like, oh, he doesn't want to be in the same room as me. Not, oh, Ron wants to be with the rest of his family. They're all feeling very upset about Arthur.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a difference there between, it's not that Harry's, like, doing something wrong necessarily, but again, he's, like, having main character syndrome again of, like, they're only doing these things because of me. And
yeah, but
it's about me. And it's like, no, maybe it's about them.
He thinks it's his fault that it's happened, so that exacerbates his feeling of being an outsider.
Right.
He's already an outsider because he's not a Weasley, so he still feels like he can't share in their kind of shock and upset in the same way. I mean, but it's not only that. It's he feels like he is the reason all of this is happening. He's the one who hurt him, and you know, he doesn't know Arthur is going to be okay yet. He thinks he might have killed him. You know, what on earth can he say to Ron that's going to make him feel better to be a better friend?
Oh, it's not
He's the worst friend in his head right now.
He doesn't have to say
He's
anything.
the worst friend because he nearly killed his dad.
Well, in Chamber, he just sits quietly with them. Like, he knows how to handle Weasleys in trauma. They sit quietly. And so I don't think it would take too much for him to also sit quietly. Yeah, he may be feeling guilty, but I think there's a difference between, oh, Harry's staying up there because he feels guilty and he doesn't want to face the Weasleys, and what he's doing, which is, they don't want to be with me.
Yeah, that's the linchpin for me.
That's different. That's I think the difference here.
That is absolute. I don't think that's true at all. I think because he spent first of all, you have to remember too, I think he's definitely sleep deprived at this point, but a lot, like very considerably, because the night before, everyone else got rest before they went to St. Mungo's once Molly came there. And everyone learned that their dad was okay. Like, everyone went to sleep, but Harry the whole time was worried that he was the one that did it, so he didn't get any sleep. And then they went to visit him in the hospital, and then they came back home, and then that's where this chapter starts. But he tried to sleep, but he didn't sleep all night because he was afraid that if he went back to sleep, that whatever was happening to him, whether it was him or Voldemort, because he spends the whole night thinking about how Voldemort like transported him there and then he attacked, but he was afraid he was going to turn into a snake again and attack everyone else at the house. And then he also has the thought that if Voldemort can see through him, like he didn't want to be around the people because he didn't want to hear anything anyone was saying, so Voldemort wouldn't know. So but then also he didn't sleep all night, and then when he did fall asleep, immediately Voldemort was right there waiting to show him the vision of the door. So like, I think that he is trying to, it's his saving thing, people thing again, partially, I think, right? Like he thinks that he's a danger to everybody. So that's why he's hiding. He's not hiding because he doesn't think they don't want to be around him. He doesn't think they should be around him because he thinks he's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, no, I agree with that.
Sort of, yes, but also there's a direct quote, he doesn't want to be on his own with me, not after what he heard Moody say.
That's my linchpin there. That's where I think Harry's being thoughtless, where he's putting it only in the terms of how it relates to him rather than thinking about why Ron might not want to be with him. What are the other reasons? It might not just be Moody.
It does relate to him, though. Like, I'm sorry, if you think you attacked your best friend's father and then your best friend wasn't staying in the room with you, like, I think it's a completely reasonable assumption to think that, like, that's something to do with you.
I think it's reasonable too, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, like, it is very normal, like, especially when people are, upset and feeling guilty and whatever, like, to interpret those sorts of things in a personal way because... Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like normal human behavior to take those sorts of things personally. And sure, from an objective standpoint, if we're standing outside of it, we can think of other reasons why Ron might not be in the room with him. But I can completely understand why Harry isn't going there because he's so focused on the fact that he might be a threat to everyone.
And I think it's normal for him to want to be by himself as well. At 1,000%.
Yeah, because he's kind of trying to process what happened.
Yeah.
And it's not like he is saying to anybody, including Ron, oh, I think you don't want to be around me. It's a thought in his head. We can't police people's thoughts, I think that's a natural thought to have. I don't think that's, I think that's naturally self-centered. Self-centered isn't necessarily a bad thing.
And especially if you're keeping it to yourself, too, because I think that's why I kind of feel like it's kind of not necessarily super fair to get on to Harry and say that he's being all angsty, because you can't really be angsty with yourself. Angst is when you project it onto other people, or at least that's how I feel about it. But I mean, I could be wrong. But, he's not really projecting too much on everybody else. We're just getting to hear his inner thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. I think you can definitely angst to yourself. Like, the inner monologue that Harry has, that is very angsty. Like, even if he keeps it to himself.
And he also is punishing himself. And so he does that as well by just not eating when he is mentally not feeling well, which I think is a common thing. It definitely gives me Dean Winchester vibes, though. Everybody knows that something's wrong with Dean in Supernatural when he's not eating.
Yeah, and also that's how Dursleys always punished him. They would say, okay, no dinner for you for so many days or whatever. whatever. And also just on like a physical level, if you're feeling really anxious, for a lot of people that tend to make them not want to eat. So that's pretty reasonable to me.
I do have a little moment of sadness here at the end of this section where he can hear Sirius really happy because it's just like Sirius has been so upset for so long, and now Sirius is finally like, people are here and let's have a Christmas and let's, trying his best. And Harry is now in like the throes of all of the angst, and so it's like they're swapping spots, and Sirius would like nothing more, I'm sure, than to spend time with Harry when both of them are in a good mood, which like thankfully we get a little bit of that later. But I am slightly surprised that Sirius doesn't just like come bounding into the room yelling "God rest you merry hippogriffs" at the top of his lungs and like try to snap him out or anything. It does surprise me a little bit that Sirius isn't part of the small attempts to get Harry out of his room. But
I think it shows how preoccupied Sirius is this whole year, with how much Sirius is struggling with being back at Grimmauld Place.
Also, he might be also thinking that he's just catching up on sleep, just like Molly's thinking, which is reasonable.
Right. He doesn't know what they overheard at St. Mungo's or anything like that. Like, he has no reason to believe that Harry is any more upset than any of the rest of them. So he probably thinks, he's just getting some sleep.
Yeah, I quite like this part actually, in the sense that this is a Christmas chapter, so we are in the festive period, so to speak, and it would be common to think that this is a time of universal joy, but the reality
not in Harry Potter.
No, but like the reality of it is in life as well, is that there be some people that are happy at Christmas and some people that are going through a really difficult time, and in the way having all this like merriment around them can make it feel worse, because you feel like, well, I mean, what's up with me? So it's kind of good to see this kind of a complex view on Christmas in this book. So it's not just fun and presents; it's all sorts of other things that are going on.
Yeah.
So I quite like that.
But can we go back to Sirius? Because do we hold him a little bit culpable for not following up with Harry?
Yes.
Because, like, Sirius, I think, is the only one whom Harry actually spells out his feelings of guilt to, right? Like, the minute they go back to Grimmauld Place, and I was trying to remember how this happened, like, Harry pulls Sirius aside, and he's like, I was the snake. I felt like I was the one. I think I attacked him. And Sirius has very good advice in the moment, which is, no, you didn't. It's okay. You need to sleep. Like, and then you will feel better, and it's shock, and it's lucky that you saw what you saw. So, like, his initial response was good, but, like, after that, like, you have an angsty 15-year-old who has seen some and just told you that he feels guilty for attacking his best friend's dad. Like, that really seems to warrant a follow-up, however preoccupied Sirius is.
Yeah, this is a bad Sirius moment. I think, this whole book is about, or not about, but in part covers how all the adults in Harry's life fail him in some way, shape, or form. Molly and Arthur try and coddle him too much. Sirius is too pushing in the wrong places. Dumbledore doesn't reveal anything to him. Remus isn't reaching out. Snape doesn't do very, very well. The Ministry is going specifically after him. There's a reason why Harry has all of his angst. And here, Sirius's role as godfather is to be the replacement of a parent right now. And it may be that Sirius, this is all speculation, clearly no textual evidence. It may be that Sirius's parents were overbearing and tried to talk to him too much and tried to get inside his head too much and told him all these things to do. And then he's just trying to let Harry sit back and relax. But with what you just said, Irvin, knowing that Harry told him, I was the snake and I have worries, this is a failure on Sirius's behalf. And I think, like Aurelia was saying earlier, this has a lot to do with Sirius being too preoccupied by the things that make him miserable. And then conversely, in this point, the things that make him happy. He's excited. He too is being self-centered.
And
I think it's important to keep in mind how short of a time span we have over these last 2 chapters here. When from the time that I think Hermione comes up and finds Harry in the room where he's sleeping, where he's with Buckbeak, to when that actually happens, it's like only a day. So, I think like when Sirius is first talking to Harry, when Harry pulls him aside, I think that the way I kind of read that is Sirius he's listening to what Harry's saying, but I think there's just so much relief that Arthur's going to be okay, that there's not some pressure being put on him to like take care of some sort of a situation. And it's just like, okay, everything's going to be all right. I definitely think he heard what Harry had to say, but I think he also, there was so much relief there from everybody except for Harry, who's just constantly worrying. And then to go the next morning, I think someone said it a little while ago, like that Sirius and Mrs. Weasley might just be thinking Harry's trying to, sleep and catch up on sleep and whatnot. Like, I could absolutely see that being the case because it really has only been a day or so. And when you have a really tough night where everyone stays up together like they had, it does take like 2 days for everyone to kind of like your body and your mind to like reorient yourself. So like they're still within that time period where everybody's got to be feeling kind of weird about the whole situation physically too, not just even mentally, with the relief and the happiness, but also, everything going on for Harry on the negative aspect of things as well.
That's fair. Yeah. Like they're all sleep deprived and on edge. So like, yeah, no one comes off spectacularly in this chapter, except Ginny.
So we need to adjust our expectations.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is a good time to segue in what I dubbed Hermione and Ginny to the rescue section.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's when the things start looking up in the chapter.
Oh, dear God,
Yes.
please.
Until they don't with the Longbottoms, but yes.
Yes. So Hermione arrives, and I mean, I love that Hermione arrives because I do think she plays a crucial part here, but also I'm slightly sad for Hermione's parents because really, they don't get to see Hermione a lot.
It is sad. Yeah. I mean, especially, as I think if I read it as a child, I would think of it differently. It probably wouldn't bother me at all. But I think reading it as a parent, it does seem very sad. Their daughter is a part of the world they don't really understand and can't be fully part of. But they're being supportive. They're trying to be supportive in the only way that they feel they can. So if she says, "Oh, everybody who is going to do well is going to be staying in Hogwarts over Christmas," they're like, oh, okay, sweetie, I wish you were with us, but but I'm sure it's not easy for them, and I hope that after Deathly Hallows, once Hermione gets them back from Australia, they find some kind of way to blend her Muggle origins and her wizarding life a bit more seamlessly. So, because in the 7th book, she kind of really sets them aside to concentrate on her Hogwarts career.
I mean, she set them aside in like the 4th book and never looked back. Let's be honest. I
mean, yes, that's true. That's true. But I'm hoping they kind of reunite a little bit.
Like in Deathly Hallows, when she mentions that she's like told her parents so much about Harry, and I was like, when? In
France, that
spent
one
like
time.
3 hours with your parents since you were 13
over that one bowl of bouillabaisse.
My guess would be that she writes to them regularly because we know she writes to other people.
I mean, gosh,
so
I
would
hope
say
so.
She writes to them.
Yeah, she seems like the kind of student that would write home quite often, like during the semester.
Yeah, she probably sends them like weekly letters that are multiple pages long.
So do you think her parents have more interaction with her through letter than when Hermione's actually
100%,
there
yes.
with them?
I would,
yeah.
100%.
But also, I really hope that she's never mixed up her letters to Victor Crumb and her letters to her parents.
As long as she sent it with a reliable owl.
Errol is in her life, Sierra.
It doesn't mean that she uses it.
She might have.
Sure, she would rather use a Hogwarts owl.
This whole Hermione's relationship with her parents is just one of the many reasons why Irvin and I are convinced that Hermione will eventually be the biggest villain Harry has ever known. Her cool intellect will supersede her silly emotions, and she will become the greatest dark witch of her age.
She's also got to be very well versed in lying by now, because there's no way that she might tell her parents about Harry, but there's no way she's not lying to them about everything they get up to every year. Because can you imagine being even being a wizarding parent, hearing about all the stuff that they get up to?
Oh, no,
That would
she doesn't
be
have to
horrifying.
lie.
And then, but here, I'm staying at Hogwarts because all the serious people are going to be studying. Not my best friend's father got attacked by a giant snake and is in the hospital, and they can't figure out
at his
how
place
to
of
cure him
work.
yet.
He got attacked at his place of work.
Yes, exactly. Like there's
Wait, is it lying? Is it lying if you just omit that information?
Yes.
It's a lie by omission.
Yes, lie by omission is a real thing.
Okay, well, but it's not as bad as like other kind of lying.
I mean, there's no way they would allow her to go back so casually every year.
Oh, yeah,
if they knew
absolutely,
even
yeah.
a quarter of what is happening.
No, I mean, if I were Hermione, I wouldn't tell them.
Listen,
No, me neither.
If I had a child at boarding school and she lied to me about my friends and I smoked pot last weekend, versus a lie by omission of, there's a giant monster in the basement that's trying to kill and eat people, but don't worry, my friend took care of it, and she just forgot to tell me that, I'd be way more mad about the basilisk than about the pot.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, I also was one of the ones who got petrified from it.
Turns out.
No big deal.
Yeah, so when you didn't get any letters from me for a couple months, I was just I was just studying real hard because finals were coming up.
Because all the real studiers don't write their parents.
Do you think McGonagall
She would
have to
told
tell
them.
the?
Yeah.
I think McGonagall must have informed.
Yeah, but did they tell him at the end
so.
of the year that it was a basilisk? And had been living there for the last 900 years?
Need to know basis, Sam.
No, it's not need to know.
yes.
As a parent, I need to know.
Otherwise known as a lie by
A
omission.
lie by omission. I'm going to be way more angry about that.
Yeah, but you remember, you got to think of perspective too, though, because imagine if your daughter came to you one day and was like, "Hey, so I can fly. I can make things fly across the air. I can drink juice and turn into another person.
Or
I can
cat.
make fire. I can freeze this." You might be like, "Yeah, you could probably take care of some of that stuff on your own." You know?
Also, it was the 90s. Come on.
Yeah. We were all lighting stuff on fire, you know.
Patrick, you and I had very different 90s.
I'm pretty sure our entire lives have been completely different, Irvin.
You know what? That's fair. We've also had very different 2000s, 10s, and 20s.
Yes.
I'm personally still shocked that Irvin didn't know people had bikes at home.
Oh, yeah, that was a great
That was
reveal.
a wild.
Where do you keep
revelation.
one?
In the garage. Or in a shed.
Yeah.
Leaning up against a house.
What is a
Depends on
shed?
the weather.
Oh, my God.
I understand none of how you people live.
Okay, so Irvin, to put this into a world that you'll understand, at one point, Harry and Dumbledore are walking back from the Slughorn errand, and he brings Harry into a shed full of spiders and the brooms that they would fly. It's like that, but for bicycles.
Yeah. Good explanation.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Also, Arthur has a shed as well.
Yes.
And that is where the Anglia
Yeah.
is.
I like that we need to use Harry Potter to
Explain real life stuff to Irvin.
Yes,
Something
please.
as common as a shed.
I think that's kind of fair because you only really know about stuff like that if you live in a house as opposed to say a flat or an apartment.
In the midst
because
of
I didn't see an individual house where people live outside of rural environment until I was maybe about 15. Because prior to that, I just lived in flats and apartments, and I've only seen houses with sheds if you go out to some random village somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But you have seen them and you knew what it was.
Yeah, I have not. I mean, I've seen houses.
I wouldn't know what was in them. I mean, I vaguely knew that they existed. But.
I mean, it goes both ways too, though, because I just learned a couple of years ago that the ice cream man was like a real thing. Like, dudes really drive around in a truck and give kids ice cream and stuff.
Rupert
if they
Grint
paid
did
for
that.
it.
Pay for it, yes.
I thought that was
Well,
just
you
like
have
a
to pay
fable.
for it.
I thought it was
to pay for it.
No, I know
He
that, but I
doesn't
mean,
just
like,
give it.
I didn't realize that was like a real thing. Like the mailman drives around and delivers mail. There's like an ice cream man that drives around an ice cream truck. I've never seen that in my life. And I saw one. I was like, "What? The ice cream man?" I thought it was a fairy tale in movies in Hollywood.
Wait. So wait, first of all, Patrick, did you think Max Keeble's big move was just like
was just gonna say
a
that.
fantasy movie?
I don't know what that movie is.
Oh my god, it's a perfect movie.
Going to bring that up, Irvin. Oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry. It probably is really great. I probably really love it, but I don't know that one.
Sierra, I'm so glad that someone else gets my references.
I just got so excited.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies. Like, I guess I think I just assumed that like ice cream men were like in like the 40s and the 50s and stuff, and that they kind of just like stopped.
Wait, but Patrick,
So
where did you get your ice cream as a kid?
Well, either from the store
Irvin, do you
or
not know what a grocery store is?
where I grew up, we had what we called the Schwann's man, who's a guy that would drive around and deliver like frozen meat, and you could buy ice cream and stuff from him too. So I guess it's not that different, but
So you had a frozen meat man.
kind of.
And that doesn't seem
frozen meat
outlandish
pies,
at
things like
all.
that. Just a guy that like would drive around the countryside from house to house. But like, yeah, so
That's kind of cool.
mostly just from the store, yeah. Which we'd have to travel to the city, to get to the store. But once you got there, then you could buy the stuff that was there. So
Life is a weird game.
Baffling.
Anyways, Harry
It
Potter
is.
stuff.
It certainly
Back
is.
to the real fantasy
certainly is.
world.
Nicely
Yes.
done. I love that Hermione tries to release the tension here with when Harry's like, nah, no one's looking at me, everyone's ignoring me, and she's going, maybe you're taking it in turns to look at and keep missing each other.
That is
I
pretty funny.
loved this.
I hate
Well
that
done.
line.
My favorite part of that is the corners of her mouth twitching. Like, she knows they're all being ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
like, come on,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, because it's not just Harry at that point, right? It's all of them. They're like, "You're not looking at us. Well, you're not looking at me. Well, we're not looking at." And she's like, "Yeah, y'all are just bad at looking."
Synchronize your looking.
Yeah. But she also has a really great line. So she tries to snap Harry out of it with a bit of tough love, which I think was very much needed, where she finally was like, "Harry, stop being so misunderstood."
Yeah, for real.
It doesn't work, though.
And I
doesn't
I
work.
love that because clearly tiptoeing around him the way Ron was the last couple days is not working. And so yeah, let's try it Hermione's way.
I mean, sure, but that still doesn't work because I know it whenever, I'm being unreasonable about something, if somebody just tells me, okay, well, stop doing this thing that you're doing, it'll just make me angrier or more upset.
Yeah.
So I don't think that really works because he's feeling misunderstood and she's basically telling him, okay, stop feeling like you're feeling, which is the least effective thing, mostly. To say. So that's why her thing doesn't work, but Jeannie's thing works because Jeannie gives him the facts. She doesn't tell him, don't feel the way you feel. She says, this is what it is for me, well, for her. And I think that's the difference that makes it work when Jeannie does it as opposed to Hermione.
Well, and I think it's also the shock on Harry's end, too, that he forgot that she was possessed. I mean, I think in that moment, that's when he starts to feel like, wow, that's when it all comes crashing on him. Like, I have been a selfish prick.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's such a good moment, and I think it to this point might be Ginny's best moment in the series up until this point. Obviously, she has better moments moving forward, but she doesn't make any judgments. She poses questions. She has facts, and then that moment of Harry being like, "Oh my God, I forgot," and her not letting him off the hook for that, but just saying, "Hey, isn't that great for you? You're so lucky that you can forget I was possessed. That is not something I am ever going to forget. That was one of the most horrible things, if not the most horrible thing I've been through. And great for you. You got to forget. Like, basically, she tells him to f*** off.
Yeah. And again, she just says it, and she doesn't tell him what he's supposed to feel about it. So he gets there by himself, and I think that's why they're a good pairing.
Ginny gets Harry.
Do you think that before you guys kind of indicated earlier when I mentioned this that you didn't think it went down like this, but do you think that Hermione like sat Ron and Ginny down and said, okay, I'm going to go get Harry. When we come back, we're going to talk about this, and Ginny, you should bring this up? Do you think there might have been any prepping themselves like before they brought Harry up here? Because I think even earlier in the book, it's kind of even established too that they'll like talk about how they're supposed to talk to Harry.
That's true.
And how well does that go?
I know it seems kind of silly, but at the same time, I don't know. I just keep thinking like, Dumbledore told Hermione told Harry to come up there, and they had sandwiches sent up and stuff. So like, to me, it felt very planned and intentional. Like, we're going to take you up to the room. We've set the setting. Mrs. Weasley or Sirius or Lupin or someone lit the log in the fireplace. Ron and Ginny are sitting on one bed. Harry sits down on the other. It's like an intervention type thing that they planned out.
I think yes, but I don't think anybody has to coach Ginny on what to say.
Yeah,
Ginny was probably like, I'm joining you because this.
Yeah, that's more Ginny's character.
Like, I think what you're saying, yes, is accurate. It was definitely planned and like very specifically orchestrated. However, I think Ginny was probably the one to be like, "Oh, are you going to go talk to Harry? Yeah, I have some things to say."
I see that too. Well, because also there's no time, right? Like, the text reads that the doorbell rang, like Mrs. Black starts screaming, Harry is like, "Oh, I don't care who showed up," and then like a few minutes later, somebody's hammering hard on the door. So I think Hermione sort of came in, took off her coat, was like, "All right, let's go talk to him. Come on, everybody." It doesn't seem like they had time to pre-plan it.
That's how I feel, is that Hermione came in and sort of took status and heard like one sentence from Ron about being like, no, we haven't been talking to him. And she's like, oh, I have no patience for this, and got everybody together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, though, I do want to talk about, Ginny's advice about whether or not Harry has been possessed, because it's incredibly useful in terms of, getting Harry to, calm down and, take a breath, but it's not strictly accurate. Basically, there are 3 completely different possession styles that we see from Voldemort. We see, sort of the Vapormort style that he does with Quirrell, where he's, just hanging out on the back of Quirrell's head, but, Quirrell is completely in possession of his faculties. We have the Horcrux one, where he's basically just, mind controlling Ginny, and then we have the corporeal Voldemort possessing Harry, where he's basically just peeking through Harry's mind and planting stuff there, but not just completely puppeteering Harry for days on end. And again, part of this is just these are fields of magic where no one has any clue what's going on. So I'm not saying Ginny is wrong and she shouldn't have been wrong. I'm just saying that we shouldn't take what Ginny says here as gospel for how possession works. It's what Harry needed to hear.
Oh, I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very, Rowling very cleverly does this because Harry watching this whole Nagini scene, whatever, this is really incredibly good evidence for both Horcruxes and Harry being a Horcrux and all of that, and yet she manages to sort of we see Harry sort of being oh no, Dumbledore, that Voldemort is possessing me, and Dumbledore knows that he could see Voldemort in my eyes, and all of this stuff, which is true, but then Rowling then uses Ginny for us to be oh no, it's not actually true. That's just Harry overreacting. Oh, this is fine. And I think that's really effectively done, where we're okay, reassured. this isn't how this works, but it turns out that's not really the case.
It's one of the frustrating things about not having a magic system really put in place. We don't know exactly how different the three types of possessions are, especially because we don't know how Quirrell's system got started, like Sierra notes here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if Quirrell started out as something like Ginny's possession and then it became more strong, or if it was because of the, memory versus, because at this time we don't know that it's a Horcrux. We just think that it was a memory of him that somehow kind of came to life. So we don't know that it's just different parts of Voldemort's soul necessarily at this point. And so it is, it's frustrating because we don't have that textual information to pinpoint these are three different things. They could have overlapped at some point. Maybe one could have turned into another. Maybe it's just because one of them is Voldemort directly and one of them is a memory. But Ginny is the only one that we know of who has been possessed. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you take her word as gospel in this moment? Because there's nobody else you can ask. And you can't argue with her and be like, well, my possession is different because you have no proof of that.
All right, so first you find a portrait of Quirrell, and then you're like, hey, I'm curious, when you had Voldemort in the back of your head, how did that feel?
Can you imagine if Quirrell had been training a portrait the entire time he had Voldemort on the back of his head? The tedium for Voldemort.
That would be great.
That'd be wild.
And also there's the difference with Quirrell in that he, actively chose to have Voldemort. Right. So how is that going to be different versus, Ginny, who did not choose that, but, emotionally invested herself to such an extent that, it's very different situations.
Yeah.
So there's probably very few kind of within the world possibilities of evidence. I don't know if there were any even books that some of them could have read on possession, because
sure Lockhart wrote one.
So the majority of anyone who was possessed and wasn't an animal, they probably can't share their experience because they haven't made it through it. So I would say Ginny is probably could be quite unique in that way that, she was possessed and
lives,
she has come through it and she's okay and she can say something about it. So it might be the best that Harry can get.
But you know what book they could have read, but actively chose not to?
Is it Hogwarts History?
It is indeed.
I love that Hermione's optimistic, saying, one day you're going to read it.
Never going to happen.
He has you.
I love that Joe actually said that in an interview. They're like, no, Harry and Ron never do read Hogwarts History.
Why would they?
Yeah, they have a walking, talking version.
In his defense, Voldemort is so outside, capabilities of a common or garden regular wizard, that it's not that unlikely that he would have some crazy way to penetrate Hogwarts, as far as Harry's concerned. Yes, Hogwarts History says a certain thing, but Voldemort is so powerful and can go to such ends to do what he wants that I don't know if I trust what's in Hogwarts History that much. Would you?
I was going to, quite interesting because surely none of the secret passageways or any of that is mentioned, because otherwise Hermione would have known about it and we wouldn't learn about them through the Marauders map.
That would make them very secret.
We should already be aware that Hogwarts History doesn't actually cover
every single
everything.
thing.
And it doesn't have house elves in it either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Ev, do you agree that it should actually be called a highly biased and selective history of Hogwarts, which glosses over the nastier aspects of the school?
Well, do we know when it was written, too?
Bathilda Bogshot wrote it, so it had to be within the last 100 years.
Wait, she did?
Yeah, that's
she's the author of it.
She wrote History of Magic. She didn't.
Oh, my bad. Then I don't know, Patrick.
So yeah, it might be quite older, and so there might be maybe they didn't even have house elves. you know,
No,
working
they've
at
had
Hogwarts
house
or whatever at
elves
the
since
time.
the
Like,
beginning.
They've had him since Helga Hufflepuff. She instituted the system.
okay, well, then yeah, never
Wait,
mind. In that regard,
Is that real? Did Helga Hufflepuff institute House Elf slavery?
No, she instituted house elves working in the Hogwarts kitchens.
And did she pay them?
No.
Okay, so that would be indentured
Wait.
servitude or slavery of some sort.
But she treated them better.
Yeah, she didn't invent house elf slavery. She just
No, of course,
worked within the system.
I wasn't saying that she invented House Elf slavery. I'm saying, did she institute House Elf slavery in Hogwarts?
Yes, she did. That is
Yes,
That's
Pottermore.
insane and a
Yeah.
very unfortunate, blight on the Hufflepuff house.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did Bathilda Bagshot not write both of them?
No, we don't know who wrote Hogwarts
I
in
don't
history.
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had that in my head.
Glad we're on the same page there.
Maybe because
I told you that at some point.
I'm Googling it and everything's popping up as Bathilda Bagshot's books.
Oh yeah, you're right. If you Google it, but it's from the Harry Potter wiki, which is super not trustworthy.
Well, if it was just there, that would be one thing.
It is just there. Like, per the lexicon, there's nothing about Bathilda Bagshot.
It's not in the lexicon. Okay. I could have sworn at some point Hermione says Bathilda's name alongside it, but maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think it's just history of magic.
It might have come out like on Pottermore or something, but like within the text, there's definitely nothing about.
No, I
her
thought it
writing
was like sometime during Deathly Hallows.
No.
Yeah, I think that's history of magic, unfortunately.
Yeah. They just sound similar. Yeah, so.
It's too similar. Come on. How am I supposed to be expected to remember all this? I think the whole conversation between just all of the characters here with Hermione and Ginny and everything is really just a prime example of if you talk things over instead of bottling it up all the time, things might actually move forward or be resolved.
So it's good advice.
And that goes for everybody in every media ever. Because it bothers me to no end when there are problems just because people didn't talk it out. Just talk, people.
See, and it's so interesting to hear that because I was just having this conversation with someone the other day at a hospital, actually, ironically, but that sounds wonderful. You know, that sounds really great. Let's just sit and talk it out. But the difference between what happens in every form of media and real life is nobody wants to have a conversation. Everyone just wants to make their point and then walk away and slam the door. No one sits there and like responds to you. No one calmly sits and listens to you to make your point. That's just not how real life works. And I know that's not what we're talking about, but you know, it's a very sort of utopian idea that like, oh yeah, everyone just sit and talk things out. Mm-hmm. This is not the way the real world works.
Patrick, we are on episode 50 of a podcast that goes 3 hours an episode. I would argue some people do want to sit and talk it out.
Well, that's for sure. And Irvin, I am definitely aware of how long this podcast is.
But I think we very rarely talk about our own personal angsty feelings on this podcast. We talk about Harry's angsty feelings, and that's very different.
Yeah, I feel like we're almost closer to being like we're closer to being a sitcom, especially because the conversations are edited, you know, like we're closer to being like the media rather than the real life, you know.
This isn't real life.
This is just fantasy.
Very good.
Well, hey, Irvin.
Yes?
What is playing on the pub's jukebox today?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm also so glad you asked because my Google Doc just froze. So,
I'll tell you my best Irvin voice. Here we go.
Wait, nope, don't you dare.
It's Christmas Wish by Witherwings.
That was your Irvin spot.
Wow, Irvin, you have such a manly voice all of a sudden.
And an epic Christmas
Not that you
tale.
don't normally.
Yeah. Sam, I'd love to hear you tell us about the song.
Yeah, of course. Christmas Wish was written by Buckbeak when he was first taken in by Sirius. This is when they first go down into the tropical islands of the Virgin Islands that belong to the United States, where even though the United States don't have much of a Dementor population, they actually all put it in the Virgin Islands. And so they're hiding out on Christmas, weirdly enough, and it's Christmas in July, and Witherwings decides to have a Christmas wish, and suddenly all of the Dementors are blown away, just like Drupals.
You know, Sam, you really should write that fanfic. Our song, Christmas Wish by Witherwings, is actually about Witherwings' fondest Christmas wish during this chapter, which is to be back at Hagrid's hut for Christmas. I don't think Witherwings is having a good Christmas hanging out in a room of a London house with a moody Sirius and a moody Harry alternating, hanging out with him while he's trying to eat some rats. So that is Witherwings' Christmas wish. Give it a listen.
The drifts of snow slowly grow on the windows of number 12. Though it is best, it's here where I rest. It feels like I'm here by myself. Can't help but think back, the comfort I lack. I used to have it good. Happy and fat, belly full of rat. I never yearned for food. To be in Hagrid's hut this Christmas is all I ask from you. Oh, Father Christmas, I sure do miss his care, his love, and his food. If I could have this one little thing, I promise to be good. Oh, Father Christmas, can you make this Christmas wish come true?
Do we think that Sirius keeps feeding Witherwings rats just in case it's Peter?
Yes.
Gross.
Cool. Speaking of what's on the jukebox, one of the things I had prepared for this episode back when I thought we were discussing a previous chapter, December 18th, 1995 is the day that Arthur was bitten. So we kind of covered around that same area. The number one song on the U.S. charts that day was One Sweet Day by Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men. The number one song in the UK on that particular day, so we're talking over the weekend and stuff. You know, this is what they could have heard playing outside the shops as they were in London. Earth Song by Michael Jackson was the number one song in the UK. And also, I thought this was kind of interesting, the number 4 song was It's Oh So Quiet by Bjork. So I just love the idea of Harry Potter and the Gang jamming out to the album Post by Bjork, which is definitely her best album. And I also have to shout out that in August of that year, 1995, is the absolute height of the Blur versus Oasis Britpop rivalry and like one of the most exciting and interesting times in the entire history of British music. So just a few weeks before this, when all this was happening, Oasis's famous album, forget the name of it, came out, and they were sort of winning the war at that point. But we all know that Blur would come out on top eventually and destroy Oasis so bad that they'll never get back together again. They'll never perform together again.
Wow.
And that's funny because they are back together now. They just got back together.
Oh, good.
Exactly.
Patrick, you should do the music history corner. You should do it for every episode.
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't want this to become a regular thing. You know,
and I believe that album was What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yes, absolutely. And Blur had just released Country House We could have a long conversation about that, but anyway, yeah.
But Ev, you also mentioned our other song on the pub's jukebox about how the Thestral saved Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought I'd mention it again since I mentioned it earlier. It's by the Mudbloods, and it also features in the Jingle Spells compilation of Leaky's Rocking Christmas 2007, which I recommend. That's how I got into Wizard Rock, through the Jingle Spells.
I adore those albums.
Awesome.
So it's never Christmas until I start playing Wizard Rock. So
yep.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Merry
You say
Christmas.
on December 21st when this episode comes out.
Lovely.
Yeah.
A huge thanks again for this Christmas spectacular to Sam Omen, who brought us this round of festive drinks at the 3 Christmas trees.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. If you, dear listener, would like to buy us the next round out of the goodness of your Christmassy heart, please head over to patreon.com/3broomsticks. That's with the numeral 3. Patreon.com/3broomsticks to sign up. You can also help by rating us those 5 Christmas stars and reviewing us. And if you like our show, don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth helps us hugely, and we always love to see these reviews.
And I will say, too, I say it on every podcast I'm on, the reason we ask for reviews and stars is because it helps put our podcast in the algorithm. If you just search for, like, Harry Potter podcasts, things like that, the more reviews podcasts have, the more stars the episodes have, the more likely they are to be included in the more general search terms and things like that. So it really does help us a lot.
Please and thank you.
And if you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, potentially on TikTok again, depending how TikTok likes us.
Depending on which week you hear this.
It's dead.
Okay.
But it may be alive. We'll see.
And all our assorted handles for social media can be found in the episode description or on our website. And our website is 3broomstickspod.com with the 3 spelled out. And other things you can find on our website are the links to the essays we mention. You can submit a topic for us to talk about, which would be sort of too late by the time you hear it, because we're just about to plan the next year of topics that we're going to cover.
But submit it now, and next year, don't expect a quick turnaround, but we will take it into account.
And we also do notice as well when multiple people request multiple things, then that would give us more likelihood that we would talk about that subject.
Yes, if the people demand something, we may acquiesce to those demands, honestly. I make no guarantees.
We can be persuaded on occasion.
It would be in our best interest to do so.
Hagrid episode for Irvin.
And while you're on our website, don't forget to comment on our episode. Let us know your thoughts so we can mention your thoughts on the next episode.
Next time we meet at the 3 Broomsticks, we will be discussing more of this discussion. That is right. We are carrying on.
Yay!
It's been Ev
And Sophia.
And Sierra.
And Oreo.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It's Sam.
And Irvin. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next year in the 3 Broomsticks. Cheers!
Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Give me big old buckets of butterbeer. Give me big old barrels of butterbeer. Give me the drink I love so dear. And another round for my friend right here. Of the sweet old butterbeer.
This episode of The 3 Broomsticks was edited by Patrick Musilek. The theme song was written and performed by The Faithful Sidekicks. Make sure to check them out at thefaithfulsidekicks.com.
Dear listeners, Sam here. You may have heard me, back in the autumn, say that Snape has a goatee in the What If Severus Snape edition. And then I was debunked by myself and Sierra. But don't worry, listeners. It turns out I was right and wrong. If you have the original American drawings in your Harry Potter books, you'll see on chapter 24 of Order that Snape has a goatee and is also, you guessed it, bald? Question mark. Take that for data, Sierra.
I also will prove myself wrong here with another image from Half-Blood Prince. He is not bald in this image, so he grows his hair back. He also does not have a flat head, which is very entertaining. However, if you go back to Prisoner, there is the flat-headed goateed weirdo once more.
That is a perfect example. No, that is such a perfect example of when I'm editing the episodes and I'm like, you people are such idiots. Of course he has a goatee in the chapter pictures. But then you looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, is this a Mandela effect thing? Have we all been wrong the whole time? I just assumed that in the books, Snape had a goatee the whole time. So,
There you go.
Very fascinating.
Sierra, you and I need to start a wizard rock band called the Flat-Headed Goateed Weirdo.
I love it.
You can go on tour with Spattergroit.
Who's going to be the lead singer? Who's going to be the flat-headed goateed weirdo?
I mean, I literally have facial hair.
I was going to say, I think it has to be me.
Yeah,
because I'm not flat-headed with a goatee, but...
I mean, there's still time.
There's still time here.
You could just do instrumental ambient music or something like that. Just like droning music or whatever.
Oh, that's...
Definitely not as rockin' as Spattergroit.
That band would just be Sierra and I going, weirdo, 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 weirdo,
Merry Christmas! It's Christmas time!
It's just acapella, terrible acapella.